Hey guys, today I'm going to be sharing some tips for getting Sub-5 or Sub-4 with the Ortega method. If you don't know the method yet, or if you still need to learn some algs, I do have an Ortega tutorial, so you can check that out, link in the description. The first thing I'm going to talk about is inspection. One thing that I found is really helpful to figure out during inspection is what your first side's going to look like. Is it going to be a completed side? Is it going to have a diagonal swap? Is it going to have an adjacent swap? If it's going to have an adjacent swap, where's the bar going to be? Knowing that information about the first side can help save you some time between OLL and PBL. For instance, in this case, I'm going to do yellow. So first, I'm going to put this corner down right there, one move, and then I'm going to put this one in. And I know there's going to be an orange bar right there. So I'll do that. Orange bar's right there, OLL, and now I have my PBL. And because I already knew the bar was there, I didn't really have to look at the bottom layer. I saw the bar up here, and I immediately knew what case I had. So it's nice to keep that in mind when you're inspecting, so that way you can save a little bit of time. For this case, I'm going to do white, so I'm going to bring this corner up to pair with that one. That's going to be a block, and then I'm going to put that block in. So I know that my layer is going to be fully completed, which is nice because that reduces the number of PBL cases I can have. I know I'm either going to have like an adjacent swap or a diagonal swap. So I'll do that, do my OLL, and then I have an adjacent swap. So it's nice because it just helps me know what case I'm going to have quicker. I don't have to like look around the entire cube because I already know what the bottom looks like. Another thing you could look for during inspection is what OLL you're going to have. If you know what OLL case you're going to get after you make your first side, you're going to be able to go right into the AUF without any pauses, which will definitely save you some time. If you have like an easy first side, especially like just a few moves, I would definitely recommend trying to predict your OLL. For instance, if I'm doing like white in this case, it's only a 3-move side, and I know that this yellow piece is going to move up there, so that's going to be headlights there. This is going to stay, this one's going to move over here, so I'm going to have headlights on the left, headlights on the right, which means I'm going to have the H case. So now I can go right into it, no pauses or anything. If you're predicting ahead to OLL during inspection, you'll also find opportunities where you can save some moves by canceling into the OLL. For instance, with this case, so to make my side yellow, it's pretty much just a U prime R prime. And then I see that I'm going to have a soon, where the first two moves would be RU. So instead of doing U prime, RU, I can just pretty much cancel right into it. So I just saved 4 moves right there because I was able to predict my OLL and I was able to find the cancellation. If I didn't predict my OLL, I wouldn't have been able to cancel into it. So that's another nice benefit of predicting your OLL during inspection. Taking advantage of inspection can really help your times by reducing pauses and maybe even saving you some moves. To improve inspection, my advice would be to just take however much time you need in order to predict whatever you are trying to predict. Once you get more comfortable at figuring out what cases you're going to have, you can go back to regular 15-second inspection and practice with that to make sure you're able to do it within the normal inspection time. Next, I'm going to be talking about making your first side, which I'd say is probably the thing that is most important to focus on. I think it's the stage where the most improvement can be made. First of all, if you're not color neutral, that should be your main priority. You want to make sure you're able to take advantage of easy scrambles, and you'll definitely miss out on some easy ones if you're not color neutral. It also just gives you a lot more flexibility when making your first side. Making an efficient first side is huge, and with practice you'll definitely get better at this. I can't go over every possible case, but I will have some walkthrough solves at the end of this video so you can see some examples of what I would do. If you're struggling with making an efficient first layer, I think watching walkthroughs is really helpful for figuring out good ways to make layers. Again, there's a million different possibilities, but I'm going to go over a few layers that I think I found good ways to do. So first we have, so if I was doing like yellow, we have the single corner rotation. So if you take this corner out and rotate it, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 moves. So it's kind of a lot of moves. But instead, if you move the twisted corner over to knock that one out, 1 move, and then insert that one in like normal, 2, 3, 4 moves. You can do it with only 4 moves. I'd also really recommend trying to look for ways to put in 2 corners at once. For instance, in this case, if you're doing white, you could put this one in, 1, 2 moves, and then put this one in, 3, 4, 5 moves. Or you could put them in at the same time by moving this one down, but not putting it all the way in, then moving this one over to create the block, that's 2 moves, and then putting it down, so that's only 3 moves. Another thing that even I sometimes forget is that the easiest looking side isn't always the most efficient. For instance, in this case, my eye kind of catches white just because there's already 3 pieces together, and that would be like a 1, 2, 3 move side. But if I look around, I'll see that blue is actually only 2 moves. I have the tendency to go with the first thing I see, but that sometimes causes me to miss something even easier. I don't really have any advice for OLL. In my opinion, there isn't any more you need to do with this step to get Sub-5 or Sub-4. As long as you know all the cases, I think you're perfectly fine. That's really all you need to do. Later on in the video, I show a few additional PBL algs that I think are useful to know, but if you also want to learn more algs for OLL, which again, I don't think is necessary, but if you like learning algs, what I think could be useful is learning the algs, but from different angles. I'm not going to go over them all in this video, but I'll link a website that I found with a bunch of the algs in the description in case you want to learn them. It could be useful, and if you know the alg from 2 different angles, you can save a few moves, which is nice. For PBL, if you already know full Ortega, there isn't anything else that you need to learn alg-wise, but there are a few algs that I think are really helpful to know. For the case where there's an adjacent swap on both sides, what I normally do is hold the bars in the back and do the alg. I think it's also super useful to know an alg for when the bars are facing you. This alg is R2, U prime, B2, U2 prime, R2 prime, U prime, R2. That way you can avoid having to do a rotation, which is really nice. For the adjacent swap on the top layer, you can use the 3x3 JB perm alg or the T perm alg. I found that it's also nice to use the JA perm alg. You just hold it with the bar facing you and do the same alg as you would do on 3x3. I found that this alg is really nice to execute on 2x2, and I can do it really quickly and fluidly. It's also nice to know an alg for this case from another angle. That way you can save a move or rotation sometimes. For the adjacent swap on the top layer, I found that it's faster to use an alternative alg instead of the regular Y-perm alg. I use this alg. I think it's much faster than the Y-perm, so it has saved me a bit of time in my solves. The last step in solving the 2x2 is the AUF. I've kind of come up with my own way of figuring out what the AUF is going to be, so I'm just going to show you what I do. I feel like my explanation here was a bit unclear, so I just want to clarify. This isn't something that I predict during inspection. This is something that I predict right after OLL, so when I'm just taking a quick glance at the cube to see what PBL I'm going to have, I also try to predict my AUF. I don't do it necessarily every time, but if I'm able to, with just a quick glance, see what my AUF is going to be, it can help save me from having a big pause after my PBL. Predicting the AUF can also be useful if you're trying to one-look a solve, and one-looking is definitely not necessary to get Sub-4 or Sub-5 on 2x2, but if there's a really easy scramble that you can one-look, it is nice to try it, and it can be helpful to be able to predict the AUF if you want to one-look. So if I have the adjacent case, I pretty much try to imagine as if these 2 pieces were switched and these 2 pieces were switched, so pretty much the layers were solved. And if they were switched and the layers were solved, I would need to do a U prime to correct the layers. So I know that after the alg, I'm going to have to do a U prime. In this case, if these 2 pieces were switched and these 2 pieces were switched, I would have to do a U to correct the cube. So I know that after the alg, I'm going to have to do a U. If these 2 corners were switched and these 2 corners were switched, I would have to do a U2 to correct the layers. So after the alg, I'm going to have to do a U2. Alright, that was kind of my logic for that case. I hope it made sense. I think predicting the AUF can be really helpful because it can help reduce a pause, and also I think you're less likely to get a +2 if you know what the AUF is going to be ahead of time. For the case where there's 2 adjacent swaps, I use similar logic but kind of the opposite. So I think about what move I would have to do to make the cube look like this, where all of these bars are made. and then at the end, I do the opposite of whatever that move is for the AUF. For instance, in this case, I would have to do a U to make all these bars. So after the ALG, I'm going to have to do a U prime. So ALG, U prime. If I'd have to do a U prime to make the bars, then I know after the ALG, I'm going to have to do a U. U. If I need to do a U2 to make the bars, I know that after the ALG, I'd have to do a U2. So that was just my logic for predicting the AUF for that case. Again, I hope it made sense. I think it is really helpful to predict the AUF because it can save you a pause at the end of your solve. Here we have the case where there's an adjacent swap on top and a diagonal swap on the bottom. For this case, I use similar logic to the last one where it's kind of like reversed. So I think about this piece, so the like right piece of the block, and the piece that it matches up with on the bottom. So if like I needed to do a U prime to match it up with that piece, then that would mean after the ALG I would need to do a U. So ALG, U. If I would need to do a U to match it up with that piece, then I'll have to do a U prime after the ALG. U prime. If I need to do a U2 to match it up with the piece, then after the ALG I would have to do a U2. And if it's already matched up with the piece, then there is no AUF. The case with an adjacent swap on the bottom and a diagonal swap on the top is similar, except you're matching the left corner of the block with the corner that matches with it. So in this case, it would be these two. So they're already matched up, so I know that there is not going to be an AUF. I really hope that made sense. I'm really sorry if it didn't, but I just wanted to explain my logic for predicting the AUF because I found that it's really helpful, and that's just kind of how I think about it. So I just went over all my tips for every step of the Ortega method. Next, I'm going to do some walkthrough solves. Now I'm going to be doing some walkthrough solves. I'm mostly going to be focusing on the first layer just because that's the most important step, and the rest of it is pretty much just ALGs. So for this case, I'm going to do blue. I see a 3-move layer. So this piece is going to go down. But instead of just doing like an R and moving it down, I'm actually going to do an R2. That way I can put this one in at the same time. So pretty much it's going to be R2, U prime, R prime. And I know that this piece is going to be here, so there's going to be a yellow bar in the front, which is good to know. So R2, U prime, put that bar together, move that down. Now we have OLL, OP, and not too great of a case, and PLL. So for this case, the first thing I see is yellow because there's 3 corners already together, but it's not too great, kind of a lot of moves to get that in. I also see white, which is actually only 2 moves, so I'll do a U2, move that corner over here, and that'll match up with this yellow, so bring that bar down. And this is blue here, and that's blue there, so I'm going to have a blue bar on the left down here. I can also predict my OLA for this case really easily, so these headlights are going to move over here, so there's going to be headlights on the right, and then this yellow is going to go here, move that up, so there's going to be headlights on the left, so I know I'm going to have the H case. So start off by doing my first layer, U2L. Now I have my H case, and now as I'm like kind of rotating to get in the right position to do this, I can also use my AUF prediction. So I know that to match these two up, I'd have to do like a U prime. So I know that after the ALG, I'm going to have to do a U prime. Okay, for this case, I'm going to do yellow. So pretty much what I'll do is start by doing like a U prime, R prime, put that corner here. Then I can do another U prime to move this one over there. So they'll be together and there'll be like a bar right here. Then I can just do an R prime to move them down. This is red here and this is orange here. Those are going to end up being together. So I know that I'm going to have a diagonal swap on the bottom, which is nice, and I'll just keep that in mind. So U prime, R prime, put them together, R prime to put them down, OLL, and now I see that I have the bar right here, and I know that I have a diagonal swap on the bottom, so all I had to do is look at the top layer to know what case I had. I would need to do it like a U2 to put this corner with the matching one, so I know my AUF is going to be a U2. For this case, I'm going to do white because it's only a 4-move layer. And then I see that, so this corner is going to remain here. This corner is going to go down here. So I'm going to have the L case, I believe that's what it's called. But it's going to be from this angle. So to save me like a U2, I'm actually going to do this side from the back. So first I will put that corner in like that. Now I will do the case. And Y perm. For this case, I'm going to do yellow. It's only 3 moves. And I see that I'm going to have a diagonal swap on the bottom, so I'll just keep that in mind. I can also predict my OLL pretty easily for this case, so this one's going to stay with yellow oriented. This piece is going to go there, so I'm going to have 2 yellow corners oriented there. And then we're going to have the like headlights off to the side, because this one's going to be off to the side here. This one's going to be off to the side here. So we're going to have the T case, and we're going to have to do like a U before we do the AUG, since the bar will be there, and it should be there. So we will do this layer, U, do the T case, and now we have PBL, and if we use my prediction, AUF prediction technique, I'd have to do a U2 to pair these up, so I would just do the AUG, and then do a U2. For this case, I would do red. It's only 3 move to make a side, and actually it's like a completed layer, so I would move this one down here, and then I do like a U prime R prime to pair these two up and put them in. So I'll do that, move that one down, U prime R prime, put those in, and now we have OLL and PLL. For this case, I would just do blue because I can do it in 4 moves. So put that corner down there. And this one has orange here, there's orange there, so now I'm going to have like a bar in the front. And we can also predict the OLL for this case. So this corner is going to remain oriented. It's just going to be over there. So that means we are going to have a anti-soon. So we'll do that. Anti-soon. We can go right into it. And now we have PL. Kind of an unlucky case. For this case, I'm going to do orange. It's a 4 move side. So what I'll do is I'll bring that one down. Have that bar right there. And I'll just do like a R prime, U R prime to get the rest in. So put that one down, R prime, and then we'll pair these two up, put them down. Now we have OLL, anti-soon, and PBL, and if we use my prediction technique, this would be a U prime to pair those two up, so we'd have to do a U prime as the AUF. For this case, I'm going to go with green, since it's a 1 move side, and I see that I'm going to have a diagonal swap. For OLL, I'm going to have the T case where there's like headlights in the front, so it's really nice. Do my side, go right into OLL, and kind of unlucky, but we have like a Y perm on the bottom. For this case, I'm going to do yellow, so 3 moves, so I can move this one down and then put that one in there. And since these are both blue, it's going to be a blue bar here. And I see that I'm actually going to have an OLL skip. This one's going to come up here, so that's going to be the bar right there. These two are going to go together like that, so that's going to be a bar right there. So first I will move this yellow one down, but I'll actually do an R2, that way I can pair these two up, put that down, and now I see that I have a diagonal swap on the top, so I immediately know what case I'm going to have. These two are already lined up, so no AUF. For this case, I'm going to go with blue. It's an easy 4 move completed layer, so move this one over there, bring that up to pair them up, then I'll do a U prime, move the bar over here, and bring it down. So we will do that. OLL, and we have a Y perm. For this case, I'm going to do red, so I'll start by doing an R2, that'll move that red corner up here. Then I can do a U prime to put the 2 reds together, so it would be a red bar right here. I can do an R prime to move it down. And I see that I'm going to have, this piece is going to go back here, so I'll have a blue bar in the back. So I'll keep that in mind. So R2, U prime, R prime. Now I'll do an anti-soon. And I see that I have a bar on the top right there, so I immediately know what case I'm going to have. Put the 2 bars in the back and do the AUG. For this case, I'm going to do red, so it's a 3 move layer. I can do an R, U2, R prime to get that corner in there. And that means this block is going to end up over here. So this corner is going to be oriented back here. This one's already oriented back here. This headlight is going to be going off to the side. So I know that I'm going to have the T case. And I'm going to have to do like a U before the AUG because the bar is going to be there and it needs to be there. So R, oh, and of course the layer is going to be fully completed. So R, U2, R prime, U, OLL, and then we have a J perm or T perm. For this scramble, we're going to do red. So if I do an F, then I'm going to have the red bar here and red bar here. So then I'll just do a U2, L2 to get the other red bar over and then down. And when I do the F, these two are going to be together. These two are going to be like opposite, so I know that I'm going to have an adjacent swap. The bar is going to be on the right, so I'll do F, U2, L2 to bring that bar down. Now I have OL, and that side's completed, so I know that I just have an adjacent swap on the bottom. For this scramble, I'm going to go with yellow. It's a 2-move side. I'll just do a U2, which will bring that corner over here, so we'll have the yellow bar right there. Do an R prime to finish off the yellows. I see that I'm going to have an adjacent swap on the bottom, so I'll keep that in mind. I can also predict the OLO pretty nicely, so this oriented corner is going to be over here. This corner is going to move up, so those are both going to be oriented here. This piece is going to stay the same relative to this piece, so this yellow is going to end up here. So that means we're going to have 2 oriented corners here and then headlights off to the side. So we're going to have the T case, and since the oriented corners are here, we know we're going to have to do a U before the AUG. So here we go. U2 R prime U. Now we'll do the AUG. I immediately see I have an adjacent swap on the top. I have the bar right here. I already knew I had a diag swap on the bottom, so I know what case we're going to have. I know what case we have, and since these two are already correct, there's going to be no AUF. So that is all for this video. Those were just a bunch of tips that helped me to get Sub-5 and eventually Sub-4 with Ortega method, and I hope you found them helpful. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!